Hi, hello everyone, and welcome to our monthly webinar series organized by the Canadian Institute for Cybersecurity. My name is Sumit Kundu, and I will be your host for all these events. A lot of you who joined today would know that we were organizing these events during the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and it was because of a positive response during those events that we decided to make these webinars into a monthly occurrence. So starting from this month, we would host a webinar every month, and we'll call an expert from academia and industry to come on our platform and share their experience and their knowledge on the core issues of cybersecurity. So without any further ado, allow me to introduce our guest today. Our guest today is Michael Bakaic, and he is the co-founder of Iceberg Cyber and the cyberscore.com. And today he's going to talk about how the Canadian companies are painted as the targets, what can we do to help them, and a study on cyber secures of 60,000 Canadian tech companies. So, Michael, first of all, welcome to the webinar. We are glad to have you here on the platform. And before we jump into the the actual webinar, why don't you just give us a quick introduction about you and what it is that your company does?
Thanks, Sumit. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I always get a kick out of presenting this material, so we're gonna have a fun day. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Bakaic, founder of Iceberg Cyber. We're a cybersecurity startup in Toronto, and we were incubated in UNB's startup incubator called Energia Ventures, which is a different T-shirt I should have worn today. That was December 2022. I was in Tokyo for some work for the government, and then I landed in Toronto, and 12 hours later landed in Fredericton for the UNB Energia Ventures. We had like a 1-week startup hackathon. That was a fun winter. That was actually the 7th to the 14th, 2022. So like 2 years ago this week I was there. It was freezing and it was way colder than Tokyo. So that was a little bit of a shock. At Iceberg Cyber, we're doing cybersecurity for small businesses. That's our thing. You heard Sumit talk about our brand, the Cyberscore. So if you want to learn more, go to thecyberscore.com. What we're trying to do is make a communication tool so that regular people, small business owners, regular employees, regular citizens can understand how good they're doing with cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, as you probably are all feel every day, is like heavy tech jargon, complicated technology. Everyone's talking quantum and AI, these like brand new technologies we're unaccustomed to. But the real person still needs to understand where they are on the spectrum of cybersecurity. And that's what we're trying to do with the Cyberscore, make that communication tool like the cyber version of a credit score so everyone can understand how well they are.
Thanks, Michael, for this wonderful introduction and just giving us an introduction of what it is that you guys do. I understand the cybersecurity is a complex issue, especially for the small and the medium businesses. So I'm definitely looking forward to today's webinar. So floor is all yours. At this point, I would ask you to share your screen and share today's webinar topic.
Right on. All right, let's see. Got one full screen. All right, you should see my PowerPoint slide with me smiling on it.
Yeah, I can see that, Michael. And to everybody who has attended, our chat is live. So if you have any questions, please drop down in the chat box. We would try to take it either during the webinar or most likely at the end of the webinar. So Michael, again, floor is all yours.
Excellent. All right. Come with me on a journey today because we're going to talk about what we learned from scanning 10 million small businesses, and in particular, how Canadian tech companies have got a target painted on their back. So I gave you my little quick introduction before we started. Michael Bakaic, founder of Iceberg Cyber. Our main product is the Cyber Score, the cyber version of a credit score. What we're doing at the credit score, at the Cyber Score, is trying to make it easier for regular people and small business owners to understand how well they're doing when it comes to cybersecurity, mostly for their business. Personal cybersecurity is a whole new level. We're talking about cybersecurity for small businesses. In the Cyber Score, we're looking for a couple things. We search for their passwords on the internet because we live in a day where we have hundreds of cloud accounts. In my password manager, I almost have 700 different cloud accounts. So that's 700 different passwords to keep track of. Unfortunately, criminals go into these third-party cloud accounts, break into their databases, steal our passwords, and then assume that statistically we reuse those passwords. And that's why they're going after them, so they can try and log in to our bank or our emails. So we look for people's credentials on the dark web. We also see if their emails are susceptible to impersonation. And that's what email spoofing means. So email spoofing is like, I would send an email and it looked like it came exactly from Sumit. You wouldn't know that it was from me. I can impersonate his email exactly. And you can see how powerful this is for crime, because if I can impersonate his email, I'll send it all out to you with a different link that says join this Teams meeting. But that Teams meeting goes into a little web portal that asks you to log into Microsoft. And when you log into Microsoft, I get your password. So email impersonation settings, huge security risk. And we check for that when we're looking for risks with their cyber score. And then we do a couple other things like check their websites for firewalls and make sure their websites are using proper encryption. That's what goes into a cyber score. So we ran these cyber scores, and we use the cyber score as this communication tool. If you all want to play with this as we're on the call, feel free. Go to the cyberscore.com and plug in whatever website you want, like do UMB's website, and you're going to see a bunch of stuff. It's a fun tool. Sometimes it's a little voyeuristic, but that's what gets people talking and learning. And that's why we did it, to help people engage with cybersecurity and have a more accessible relationship with it. Okay, that's the intro. Now let's dig into it. So as part of our cyber score routine, we automatically scan new domains. And over the course of the year, we've scanned 10 million websites and email domains for their score. And it sounds like a lot, because it is. It's running constantly, scanning and scanning and scanning, looking for passwords on the dark web, looking for these email impersonation settings, and just documenting it. We use it in our blogs and educational material like this presentation. 10 million domains sounds like a lot, but let's make this a little bit more personal. I'm Canadian, very proud Canadian. We're going to talk about Canadian tech companies. More specifically, we're going to talk about the 60,000 Canadian tech companies that have received grants from the Canadian government. Those are companies that get cash from the feds to do research and development, intellectual property development, high value, high intellectual property value. They use the federal government money to build their companies. It's fantastic. Unfortunately, because of the way the disclosure of information works with the federal government, all the information about who gets what money is public. And that's why these tech companies have a target painted on their backs, because if we were criminals, we could just go to that grants and disclosures website and see which Canadian companies received money from the government, how much money they received, and when they got the check. Because if you were a criminal, that's all you need to know. Now you know how much money to ask for in the ransom, because you know exactly how much money they got from the government. So looking at these 60,000 tech companies, it's a split. You know, like you get the medical device companies, a lot of oil and gas out west, biotech here in Toronto area, tons of tech and software companies. That's the split. We took these 60,000 companies and ran their cyber scores. That's our process. So we look for their passwords on the dark web. Unfortunately, out of these 60,000 companies, almost 70% of them had corporate passwords on the dark web. These are tech startups like my own. Like I'm a 5-person company. You know, the majority of Canadian businesses are under 10 employees. Same with these tech companies. 70% of them had their employee passwords on the dark web. The reason that's a problem is that when you dig into it and you see that on average, they have 20 passwords per, like each company has 20 passwords available on the dark web. 20 breach accounts, 7 passwords available. That means that if we were criminals and we go through this shopping list of all the Canadian tech startups that receive government money, we go into the dark web, we find that there's 20 of their accounts are breached and we have access to 7 of their passwords. We could just try and log into their Microsoft Outlook or Gmail using their passwords. We could try and log into their RBC account because we have their passwords. That's why it's so powerful to know about whether you have passwords on the dark web, because if someone was looking like me and I could see that you as a tech startup just got $100,000 from the Canadian government and I know 7 of your employee passwords, I could try and log in. I could log into your Outlook and send your bookkeeper an email that says, we need to pay this invoice to a different bank account. Here's the different bank account information. Invoice fraud is one of the most common email scams. Or I could just simply try and log into your RBC account, your bank account. So that's the first powerful takeaway of what we can see when looking at these 60,000 companies is that a lot of them have, 70% of them, have their employee passwords available on the dark web. We keep digging deeper. The email spoofing, email impersonation settings are what prevent bad actors from sending emails that look exactly like someone else. So we take Sumit, for example. Let's say that UMB doesn't have the email impersonation protection. Like 88% of the companies that we checked in this 60,000 list, they don't have this protection. That means I can send an email to anyone and it will look like it came from Sumit. No one will be able to tell it's not him and that it's actually me. All I need to do is I'll send him an email, like him and I have been chatting via email, so I know what his email signature looks like. That's easy. And then I'll just start sending emails to all the attendees saying, hey, here's the follow-up from the webinar. Click this link to watch the recording. It'll look like it came from Sumit, and it'll take you to a little Microsoft login page. And then you'll log in to get the recording, except when you log in, not only does Microsoft get your login information, but I save your login information. And that's a great way to steal someone's credentials. So email impersonation, very important security thing, unfortunately, horrendously underused by Canadian tech companies. There's a couple layers to what you need to do. There's actually 3 steps to make sure you protect yourself from email impersonation. You got to set something up with your DNS records, which is like the phone book of the internet, to say these web servers are allowed to send emails from this domain. 88% of companies don't have that. Only 4% of companies, this is my big red 4 at the bottom, only 4% of companies actually have it fully configured. So out of the 12% that have some of it, only a third of those actually have the whole thing. So it's a lot of numbers to throw around, but the big takeaway is that 9 out of 10 Canadian tech companies don't have any protection against someone impersonating their email. So if I was a bad actor and I knew that they just got a $100,000 check from the Canadian government, and I knew the CEO's name, which you get on LinkedIn, and the financial controller's name, which you get on LinkedIn, I would just send an email from the CEO to the financial controller saying, hey, we got to pay this invoice, send it to this bank account. And the financial controller would think it's the CEO, but it's really me, and the bank account is mine. Let's peel the onion one layer further. Now we're talking about website protection. This is where things start to get a little bit more positive, and I'm going to explain to you why. 85% of these tech companies have a properly encrypted website, meaning when we visit their websites, the traffic between our computer and their website server is fully encrypted. That's important because if they're doing any e-commerce or contact information, like they have a booking link with their CRM, all that data is supposed to be protected under the Canadian privacy laws. With the SSL certificate, which is the encryption tool, it's fully protected. 6 out of the 10 of them have a web application firewall, which is another layer of protection for the website and the visitors to the website. And the reason that most companies have this setting is because like 10 years ago, Google, in its search engine algorithm, required websites to have the SSL encryption in order to rank high on search engine results. That's why most companies have this set up. It has nothing to do with security. It's really because most people want to rank high on search engine results, and Google will favor you if you have the SSL certificate. The SSL certificate is what gets you HTTPS when you visit a website. So it's almost ubiquitous now to go to HTTPS instead of just HTTP, because Google will rank you higher in the search engine results if you have the S. So here's the trend, because if we flip back to the previous page, this is another thing that Google's trying to take a bite out of. Email impersonation is horrendous when it comes to security for small businesses. Like email phishing, email scams, we all deal with that daily. Email phishing gets way more potent when you impersonate an employee and send the phishing email to their colleagues, which is super easy to do. I've done it live on stage before. So Google knows this, and they're trying to, from the top, help everyone below. So in February of 2024, February this year, they said that if you're sending marketing emails and you don't have the email impersonation settings configured, they're going to send your emails to spam, which got a bunch of people to set it up. Not because they valued security, but because they valued marketing. And that's the trend that we're going to talk about as we get more positive in this presentation. Is security on its own is viewed as a cost center. It's an expense. It's something you have to do. It's like brushing your teeth. No one likes that part. But they like smiling and having big white teeth. So Google tied the act of being more secure to making more money because they tied it to marketing. They did it with website encryption. If you have the SSL certificate, if your website's encrypted, you rank higher on the search engine results. In February, they said if you're sending marketing emails, you need to have your email impersonation settings configured, not for security reasons, but because if you don't do it, the marketing emails go to spam. So if you want your marketing emails to actually go to someone's inbox and make you money, you need the security. That's the mind shift that I'm really passionate about, is trying to tie someone to say security is my marketable advantage, not just a cost center that I got to do. All right, so we talked about email security, we talked about dark web, we talked about website security. It's a ton of fun numbers, but really who cares? And I say this wholeheartedly because a lot of people, it doesn't register on their radar. You talk to a regular small business owner, like a dentist or accountant, car dealership, there's regular people in our community. It doesn't register on their radar. They don't care. You know who cares? Criminals. Because the Canadian government, no fault of their own, they have to do this for transparency on how they spend taxpayers' money. This is the website you can go to find all the money the Canadian government gives to tech companies. This is their grants and distributions website. You can see all the money that they give out. Here's a snapshot. This money is going to be delivered April 1st, 2025 to Hope Bloom's Youth Social Entrepreneurship Ventures. Okay, this company is going to get a huge check of $91,000 on April 1st, 2025. There are almost 100,000 records like this in this database. So if we were bad actors, if we wanted to be criminals, we'd use this as our shopping list and then just start targeting these companies right after the date that they got their check, because we know they got the money. So if we wanted to be criminals, and I really recommend you not be, if we wanted to be criminals, We just look for hope looms and get ready and start sending them. Like we check their cyber score, see if they have email impersonation, see if they have any passwords on the dark web, and get ready to start running our targeting campaign at the end of March, because on April 1st, they're getting a huge check of money that we want to steal from them. And that's why they got these big red targets on their back, because the Canadian government does this. So as taxpayers, we know where our money is going. But unfortunately, in the world we live in now with cybercrime, this is painting targets on people's backs. This is where we come in. And by we, I don't mean me. I mean all of us on this call. You're here because you're curious about cybersecurity. You also like my ChatGPT pictures. That's fun. You're curious about cybersecurity. You like talking about it. That's great. We got to recognize the position of power that we have in this knowledge chain. We know something about cybersecurity. You know, you follow along with half of my stuff. You picked up that dark web breaches are bad. You probably are thinking right now, well, maybe my password's been stolen. It probably is. My passwords have been stolen all the time. That's why I have to change them. That's why I use a password manager. But we're just the tip of the iceberg. You're here in this call. 99.99% of the Canadian population, they don't hear this kind of stuff because it's not interesting to them. They don't think about it. They got a lot of other concerns. You know, this isn't on their radar. That's what we got to do, is we got to go tell our friends, tell our family, tell our grandparents, hey, criminals are coming after your money. And it's rampant. It's like the third largest global economy right now, cybercrime. It's rampant. And it's enabled because the Canadian government, it's not the fault of the Canadian government. They got to do it. The Canadian government puts targets on people's back by printing publicly which companies get checks and when the checks come in. And as criminals, that's a shopping list. And then because most of these companies, as you see from our scan, don't have any cyber basics, they have juicy, bright red neon sign targets on their back, and criminals just go pick them off one by one. So that's the power that we have. We got to go home, let this info soak in, and then tell a friend. We got to think more about cybersecurity. And I'm going to end this call on a positive note. It may sound complicated and scary and hard to be good, but really cybersecurity comes down to like three really boring things. And I refer to them as the boring basics. It's probably not the most sizzle reel way to describe them. And I call them boring because really they are. They're like brushing your teeth. It's super boring, but if you want to have a nice smile, you got to do this boring stuff. So here are the three boring basics of cybersecurity that all of you can do right after you get off this call. First boring basic is passwords. Passwords, what we talked about right at the beginning. Dark web breaches happen once a week, which means the passwords that you use are probably out in the open. They're probably public information, statistically. Unfortunately, most regular people reuse the same password. Password 1234 is the most common password in the world for a reason, because people reuse their passwords. So the first boring basic is use unique passwords for all of your accounts. That is very easy to do these days because you just need to use a password manager. I use Bitwarden. It's the password manager I've been using for years. It's super convenient. I have almost 700 passwords, 700 accounts in my Bitwarden. All I have to remember is one password, which is the one to the Bitwarden wallet. And most of the time I open it with my fingerprint on my phone. And then it autofills on my browser, on my desktop, on my phone, autofills. Fantastic. It's super easy. The reason that's a great, valuable security step forward is that if you have unique passwords, then inevitably, when one of your cloud account passwords gets stolen by a criminal, only one account is impacted. And that's what the criminals are going for. Statistically, they know that regular people reuse their passwords. So they go find like your MyFitnessPal account, which is that's a breach that impacted a ton of people. They go steal your MyFitnessPal password because it has low security. And they know that you reuse that same password for RBC. So they log into your bank account. So that's boring basic number one. Go and use a password manager. If you got no other option, use the one in Chrome or Safari or Edge, like the one in your browser. It's not the best, but it is right there at your fingertips. At least use that and set every password to be unique. If you want something a little bit more secure, I recommend Bitwarden. It's what I use personally. Use something like Bitwarden. There's tons of options out there. Go find one and use it. Boring basic number 2. Phishing. We get phishing and spam emails all the time. Like I get them dozen per day and I read them. I have a little like safety container in my inbox so I can read them without clicking on them because I'm curious and I like research. But regular people get spam and phishing emails every day. So boring basic number 2 is be ready for it. You're going to get phishing emails. It's the number one vector for a criminal to attack anyone, business, person, anyone. Be ready for it and don't think that you're stupid for clicking on it. Not at all. Like tons of people click on the links. It's not that you're stupid, it's that we're human. And the criminals are getting really good at it because there's a ton of money in it and they spend all their day thinking about it. So know that you're going to get a phishing email and do training. Like you can go online and say ways to spot a phishing email, find some blogs, read them. I mean, the ways that you spot them is that there's some manufactured urgency. The one I got this morning was in all caps, confidential. And then the link was a DocuSign link that was malicious. And it said, I need you to read this DocuSign document and sign it. And it was like poorly written, whatever, but the urgency subject line was confidential. And then there was a link. I knew not to click it because no one's sending me DocuSign document right now. I knew it. That's how you spot the fish. So boring basic number 2, be ready for phishing emails. It's going to come. Think twice before you click something because the high probability is that it's a scam out to get you. Boring basic number 3, the third P, patching. Don't let that scare you. It's not that complicated. Patching just means installing security updates. And on our phones, like on my Pixel, the 5th of every month, I get a security update from Google. Same with iPhones or whatever phone you have. All we have to do is install the update. So what I do for personally and for all of my employees is that we just have a calendar reminder every month. The 1st of every month, it's our cyber hygiene calendar reminder. Go into your computer, check Windows for updates. Go onto your phone, check Android for updates. Install. That's all you got to do. If you do that, if you install the security updates and you think twice before you click on a link in an email and you use unique passwords, like 90% of the risk of cybersecurity is not going to impact you. And that's the powerful message, because if you tell that to your friends, then 90% of risks won't impact them. And then they'll tell it to their friends because they'll see how easy it is. And then that's how we can use our position as thought leaders to make everyone's lives better so that these 60,000 Canadian companies don't end up being victims. And that's part of my big takeaway. We recognize our position as thought leaders. What I'm really passionate about is trying to get businesses to think about cybersecurity not as a cost, but as a marketable advantage. I'm following Google's footsteps here. I'd like to think it's a unique idea, but it's not. Google, 10 years ago, when they said that everyone's got to use HTTPS or else you won't rank in the search engine, that's Google tying security best practices to marketing, which is good because you saw like a huge rise in everyone using website encryption. February this year did the same thing with email impersonation. If you're not using email impersonation properly, your emails are going to go to the junk folder. And then you saw a huge jump in people, still slow, but big jump compared to what it was before. Canadian companies a little bit behind. So I'm trying to do the same thing. We use a cyber score to help people promote it to their clients. Like if you're an accounting company and you are using good passwords and keeping your computers up to date, your clients are going to appreciate that because their financial information is confidential and they want it to be confidential. So you got to tell them, I'm doing all these best practices to keep your private financial information private. That's a marketable advantage if you're an accountant. Same with law firms, same with engineering companies, same with manufacturing companies. That's what I'm trying to do with Iceberg Cyber, is get the cyber score into that general lexicon so that people start using it as an advantage. That'll help spread it, just like Google did with the websites and email. All right. Final slide is my big shout out to some books that I love about cybersecurity. So if this presentation tickled your interest and you like thinking about cybersecurity, here are my top 4 books that I recommend. I love them. I've read all of them more than once, some of them 4 times in order. This first book, which has a really cool stripy zebra cover, is called Sandworm by Andy Greenberg. Andy Greenberg is the best tech writer at Wired. His Sandworm book is very topical. Now, Sandworm is one of the most notorious hacking groups from Russia. Is supported by the Russian government. In 2014 and 2017, they attacked Ukrainian power grids. It was there's more to the story I won't unravel. This is a fantastic investigative journalism expose on that whole scenario. I highly recommend it. The second book, How I Rob Banks, is a little more on the human side. The author, Freaky Clown, his legal name, was a professional penetration tester, physical penetration tester. And what that means is banks and hospitals and other commercial companies, other companies paid him to try and break in to their businesses. So bank was one of them. The bank paid him to try and break into the bank vault and steal a gold bar. He talks through the story, how he did it, which ways that he used to get into the bank, did it for a manufacturing company, stole a helicopter once. This is part of many companies' security procedures, is to pay professionals like FC to go and find weaknesses in their security systems. The book is very accessible. It's not an overly technical book. It's a great narrative story. It's like listening to the story of Ocean's 11, but from real life. Strong recommendation. Third book, which I reread recently because the author just published his second book, similar topic. It's called The Lazarus Heist. Again, investigative journalism on North Korean hacking group trying to steal $900 million. It wasn't fully successful. It was partially successful, but excellent investigative journalism story. Well worth the read or listen. The follow-up book that just was published, I think in August or something, is about using cryptocurrency for money laundering. Again, if you're interested in cryptocurrency, interested in financial crime at all, this is what financial crime look like now. It's worth the listen or worth the read. And then final book, Tracers in the Dark, again by Andy Greenberg. He gets 2 spots on this highlight reel. Tracers in the Dark, Andy goes through another investigative journalism narrative following the money that when criminals use cryptocurrency, unfortunately for them, 10 years ago, there was a misconception that cryptocurrency and Bitcoin was anonymous. It's not in any way. It's actually quite the opposite. It is fully transparent because all the transactions are on the chain. Andy worked with a tech company called Chainalysis to de-anonymize transactions on the blockchain, and they went through and indicted 100 criminal groups. And this is his story of a bunch of different short stories combined, where they were going after purveyors of illicit material on dark web forums, breaking down dark web marketplaces, going after child predators, all by following the money. It's a great story that reminds people that the cyber warriors, the good people, can win in the end. It's not just that the baddies steal all the money and run away. Because Andy and his team from the FBI and I think the DEA was involved in many of his stories. They caught up with the criminals and got them. It's a great story. Highly recommend. All right, with that's my presentation. We went over CyberScore, using it as a communication tool. We broke down how, unfortunately, the Canadian government, through no fault of their own, painted giant red neon sign targets on tech companies' backs by plastering how much money they get on the internet. But really, the issue is that the tech companies aren't following the cyber basics. We went through what those cyber basics are. And the big takeaways that I want you all to have is that you can make a big difference in this by telling your friends and living it yourself. Follow the boring basics of cybersecurity. Use unique passwords for all your accounts. Password managers make that super easy. Make it normal to talk about phishing. You're going to get phishing emails every day. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel dumb if you clicked on it. Don't make your friends feel dumb. You're going to get them. Think twice before you click on a link. And then do the easy thing and keep your devices up to date. When you get a patch from Google or Apple or Microsoft, install it. Every month, install the security updates on your phone and your laptop. If you do those three things, passwords, phishing, patching, you're going to be safe from like 90% of the cyber risks. And if you tell your friends, they're going to be safe too. And then the next time I do this presentation is going to be how these 60,000 tech companies are laughing in the face of criminals instead of having big red targets on their back. All right, everyone. I saw Sumit. I saw some questions come in. So let's start hitting the floor and engaging with the audience.
Thanks, Mike. That was really insightful. A couple of things that I'm doing after this webinar, heading to the library and definitely picking, one of these books, and I will certainly look forward to a password manager. The more I listen to your webinar, the more I could understood that although we like to see the cybersecurity as this complex issue, but it's more simple in application. So Michael, now we'll move into the question section of our webinar. So I'll start off with the first question. In your study, you mentioned 60,000 Canadian tech companies. What are some of the common vulnerabilities you found? How can businesses address these weaknesses? Is it only specific to Canadian companies, or is it like a global issue?
Yeah, it's global. This is the humans, as different as we are very similar in many ways. And right now, when it comes to cyber hygiene, it's the same everywhere in the globe. The basics work for everyone. And unfortunately, too many people aren't following the basics. It's like the brushing your teeth thing. It takes activities all the time. You got to brush your teeth every day to have a nice big white pearly smile. And you don't get the immediate gratification when you do the basics. Like when you reset your password, there's no confetti animation that makes you feel good about yourself. So people, it's not on their radar. Unfortunately, cybersecurity is not like a dinner time conversation for anyone yet. There's no place in the world where everyone's like thinking about cybersecurity. It's not like that yet. Maybe you hear about like the phone scams or the duct cleaning things that we used to get that on landlines. We still get it on our phones. Mm-hmm. Holiday season is like big time for that. I'm sure all of us are getting the cell phone call like your Amazon delivery is coming, or you get the text message from the fake FedEx account saying your package is expected. Click here for the link. That's what we deal with now. Those types of scams. I still get the duct cleaning thing, which is funny because like it must work for them for people to keep doing it. I don't know, but I don't even know what ducts are in my house. I don't have any. But people still call. Nevertheless, it's the same everywhere. And what makes me excited about it is that fortunately the stuff that we got to do to be good at it is super easy and it's free. Like password manager, totally free. You can use the one in Chrome if you want. It's not the best, but Bitwarden, I started using it like years ago because it was free, and that's my budget. So, and it's still free. It's a community supported app. You could pay more for more features if you want to use it for your business. There's some cool business features too, but if you just need it personally, I would use that. There are other free ones too. Bitwarden's not the only one. It's easy, and it makes my life so much easier, which is like the double win. It's good for security, which is okay for most people, but it's way better for convenience because it auto-fills all my passwords. Like when I do screen shares with clients, I watch them type passwords in, and I'm like, no, stop for a second. First off, you just wasted so much of your time. Like the 3 seconds that you had to remember and type that in is a waste of our lives. Do the autofill. And if you're going to do the autofill, you might as well use a password manager because like it's a double win. Stop typing stuff in. That's so much extra work. So like it's easy to do and it makes your lives better. Now we just like groups like us have to think about how to say it conveniently and then just go tell our friends. The more we talk about it, the more normal we make it. Sooner or later, it's going to get to that like dinner time conversation. People are going to think, yeah, I got a password manager. Of course. I don't pick up phone calls that I don't recognize. Of course I don't. That's the norm now. Like if you get a phone call and it's just an unknown number or it's like some crazy number that you don't recognize, you don't pick it up. People don't do that because like they don't want the social interaction. But they also have been trained to know it's probably a scam. So we just got to get that same, like we keep talking about it in a positive light, keep reminding people that the tips are super easy. And then sooner or later, like the conversation will normalize and then we'll all get better.
Certainly, certainly. I agree with you here on most of the, in most of the things, especially on the phishing. I think we have moved so forward from the time we used to get those emails from the Nigerian king. Now the phishing emails looks very, 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 very real. There is no distinction between how you type or a bad actor would be sending, those emails. So we have another question from Earth Kumar here. It's actually a two-part question. So I'll just read it out. What is the return to request service after using the cyber? How many people are willing to spend immediately to resolve the issue that they have found using the cyber?
It would be overly optimistic to say people are jumping to spend money. No one wants to spend money. And this is why, even as a security professional, this is why I'm trying to tie the conversation about cybersecurity to something that makes companies money. Like what Google did with their search engine optimization and HTTPS. They did it because like e-commerce scams were prevalent. Google knows the power that they have with, like the control they have over traffic over the internet. So they said as a group, if we all use HTTPS, e-commerce scams will decrease and everyone will be better for it. So if you do HTTPS, you get a higher ranking in the search engine results. That's Google using their power to tie security best practices to making money, which is great because then, like that's the carrot. You get the treat at the end for doing the hard work. That's the big, pearly, shiny smile after brushing your teeth all year. I'm trying to do the same thing because like when you show someone their cyber score, they're not like, here's my money, fix it. Rarely. Those are the nice ones, but rarely it's like, I don't know. I don't think this is going to be worth it. What's worth the money? Well, statistically, like you're on this list. You just got a big check from the government. Criminals know this. They're going to come after you. Like if they steal $10,000 from you, would you even notice? Probably not. It happens daily. So is it worth that? Yeah, it's worth that. Okay, it's still a conversation. And it's still a conversation because it's a new concept for a lot of people. You run a small business. Let's say you started your business 10 years ago, which is very common. Like that's a pre-COVID life. It's a whole different lifetime ago. You started your business 10 years ago. Your tech experience is locked in then for most people. If you started a dental clinic or you started an accounting company in 2010, your best practices were solidified in 2010 because that's like when you designed everything, you got good at it, and you just locked it in. You run a business. Excellent. Unfortunately, 15 years later, cyber criminals have been working hard every year to think of better scams than the Nigerian prince. The Nigerian prince still hauls in money, though. It still gets people, but like it works, so they keep doing it. But You're right. Like the scam emails now get better every day because it's a great business. If you're a criminal, it's a great business. You make good money. You can do it pretty much with no limit. It scales well. You can live on the beach in a non-extradition country, and it's good business. So like, why wouldn't you invest in more R&D? Like get an OpenAI account and write better emails. That's easy. Write the emails in English. Super easy. I mean, that's super easy now. Like, so spotting emails because they got bad grammar or it's like broken English. That's Mickey Mouse type stuff. That doesn't happen anymore. I still see it, but those are just the emails that are caught because they're so bad. Like those are the emails that are caught by the spam filters because they're bad. The emails that get through, no one sees those because they hook someone. And those are the ones that I send pretending to be Sumit saying, hey, webinar follow-up. Thanks everyone for coming. Here's the link to the recording. Log into your office account to see the recording. No one's going to spot that because it's coming from Sumit, because Sumit doesn't have email impersonator protection. And again, I didn't check. So UMB probably has it. This is just an example. No one do what I say. Yeah. So the dark web stuff really big, because like we're all leaving the trail of passwords on the internet. We make passwords all the time, and it's a game of statistics. Small businesses not yet jumping to improve their security, but it's a new concept, and that's what we have to anticipate. That it's going to take time for everyone to learn. It's going to take, unfortunately, it's going to take some people feeling pain and telling their friends about it for everyone to realize the new reality. But that's what happens with all new things. Like, look at the adoption of AI. It's still a slow thing. We're 2 years after the birth of OpenAI. We're in the post OpenAI, with like this post OpenAI birth. It's still taking time people to use it. Like I meet people regularly and I ask them, like, what are you doing with ChatGPT? Nothing. I haven't used it yet. I mean, it's been 2 years. What do you mean you haven't used it yet? Go and do it now. Ask it a fun question. Get it to tell you a fun story. It's crazy, but it's taken 2 years. So there's a wave of early adopters for everything, including cybersecurity. There are many small businesses that are nailing it. Like, they're great. And they're in the top 12% of my stats. Like, they do all the basics. They got the calendar reminders. They got the password managers. It's killer. Easy. But then there's like the rest of them that are slow to pick up because they got other priorities. Their business focus is something else. This hasn't come up on their radar. And then there's the laggards that may never do it, and that's okay. Like, that's the distribution of the population. Our goal is to try and help people. So if they're curious, if they're closer to the front end, as with all of us on our group, like that's the power we have in coming into meetings like this. We learn a little bit, we go tell our friends. Now they're a little bit closer to the adoption curve.
Definitely, Mike. And to our viewers, if any of you get an email with a link to the webinar after this webinar, just be rest assured it's going to be a spam, because we are not sending any emails after the webinar. The
it's going to be from me.
Yes, the webinar would be posted on our YouTube channel for you to see and to share with your friends and family. With this, we'll move to the next question. Mohammed wants to ask, can you share what is your take on information that is not stolen but shared by people and companies on social media? Social media and websites.
Mm-hmm. This is commonly referred to as open source intelligence. It's from the days of people read the newspaper for photos, and it's a very powerful tool in this day and age, because our whole lives play out on the internet. Like between social media and our friends' social media and blog articles, there's a whole laundry list of artifacts of our information on the internet that can never be deleted. It's like never be deleted. I can't disappear. That's stuff only in like the spy novels where people's identities are scrubbed to the internet. It's impossible, because like even I have data on my clients. Like, unless they contact me and request to delete it, how would I know that they want to delete it? There's no way. And like I have 700 cloud accounts. I can't go through all of those and delete all my stuff. So open source intelligence, it's a huge tool for salespeople. Like I do sales. It's a huge tool. I use HubSpot. HubSpot gets all this open source intelligence, and it's a huge tool for criminals, because what we looked at, this slide up here, this is open source intelligence. So like, we're looking at the Canadian government making public the fact that this Hope Blossom has $90,000 coming to them April 1st. That's open source intelligence. My take on it, I mean, we got to use it as a tool. We got to use it as a proactive tool. Like, call this company and say, hey, just FYI, everyone knows that you're getting this money. Don't freak out about it. It's part of the game. They have to do it for transparency. But just know that you're going to get phishing and spam emails, because all the criminals also watch this website. Like, it's well known. And the criminals are going to try and get this money. So be ready for it. That's our power with open source intelligence. And social media does the same thing. Like, when you post on LinkedIn that you're hiring someone, getting malware through resumes is a real effective way to spread it, because the HR person is usually also the person that has everyone's like social insurance number and hiring forms on their computer. Because like when you hire someone, you got to ask for their social insurance number and all their contact info. They also are the ones that get all the resumes from LinkedIn. So when you send a resume of like a Word doc and it's got some malware in the Word doc, you're getting the gold from the HR person. That's open source intelligence too, because you like companies posting online that they're hiring, target the HR person. The contact information is usually with the post.
Yep. Certainly, bad actors are getting innovative, and it's surprising to see that nowadays bad actors can come on to the government website to do their window shopping. So, with this, we'll move to the last question. It's from Tariq. Thank you for the great critical analytics related to the surface attack of Canadian businesses. From your perspective, should the government prioritize more in spreading cybersecurity awareness and improving cybersecurity culture as a fundamental step, and promote caution against cyber attacks as an integral part of daily life? Because your score results appears concerning.
The Canadian government is doing a reasonably good job at this. The Canadian government has many priorities. Many priorities. Cybersecurity is one of them. It's probably not the highest because there are other things that touch our daily lives. But there are ministries and departments at multiple levels of the government that are doing great work to spread the word. So the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, CCCS, is Canada's like top civilian federal department for cybersecurity. They have awareness campaigns. They host events for small business leaders. They host events for thought leaders. I've been to many of them. I've delivered this presentation at one of them, which has gotten a fun kickback. They're doing a great job spreading the word. It's hard because it's a new thing. It's like the Canadian government being responsible for talking about AI. They do. And like there's tons of AI events. They can do so much. I would look more to us. Like, we're at the grassroots here. We're far more nimble and agile than the Canadian government. We have less restrictions on what we can say, like, and how many times we can say it. So, like, we go tell our friends, yeah, cybersecurity is important, but it's easy to be good at it. Like, it's easy to be pretty good. You use a password manager, think twice before you click on a phishing link, and keep your phone and laptop up to date. That's all you got to do. That's super easy. Tell your friends about that. Tell your grandparents because they get a lot of scam calls. Tell your parents. I had to set my parents up with the password manager because, like, I watched them log into their online banking once, and I was like, oh, no. We can't do that. We got to turn two-factor authentication on for RBC. That's a basic thing that you got to do. And when I told them, they grumbled a little bit because they got to, like, do the fingerprint on their phone. But that's all. Okay, you got to do the fingerprint on your phone. All your money is safe. That's a pretty good trade. So that's our job. Like, the Canadian government is doing great. There's limits to what they can do, and they got other things that they got to worry about. Really, we got to look to ourselves, tell your friends about it, share the webinar, connect with me on LinkedIn. Here, I'll put my LinkedIn stuff here. I put it in the chat. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Like, share with your friends, because these three boring basics, passwords, phishing, patching, they're going to protect us way more than like any top-down thing from the government, because it's just going to take too long. But, tell your friend, they run a little business, tell them, get a password manager. Turn on multi-factor authentication. That's going to help them. They don't need to worry about, they don't need to rely on the government for anything for cybersecurity if you tell them to use a password manager and turn on MFA.
Definitely. Thanks, Mike. With this, we come to the end of today's webinar, and I would certainly say I enjoyed listening to this. And of course, there are a lot of lessons to be learned from this webinar. But for me, the key takeaway would be that you made cybersecurity so simple, and which is how it is supposed to be. So thanks for sharing your knowledge and your insight. And with this, we come to end of today's webinar. So Michael has just given his LinkedIn page at the bottom of the chat. So if you all want to get in touch with him, here it is. And this is just the start of our monthly webinars. We'll be hosting similar such webinars every month. So be on the lookout for our LinkedIn page for the next announcement. And until that time, it's goodbye from us, from my side, and from the Canadian Institute for Cybersecurity as well. Thanks, Michael, for being for being here on the webinar. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.